Welcome back to Twisted Dice. I'm Darren, and today I'm joined with Tom, and today we're going to talk fluff. And who better to talk about the dark, evil ways of Eldar, none other than Tom himself.
Yeah, absolutely. Big Eldar fan, and of late, big Drukhari fan, having been sort of building up my Drukhari and thinking and reading a lot more about them. So yeah, we're gonna talk about the Incubi today and Drazhar.
And that's it. But we're also going to do we're going to do two videos today. We're going to record one, which is going to be Drukhari fluff on the Incubi, but then we're also going to do another video. So if you're interested to see how they play upon the tabletop, stay tuned, because there is going to be another video popping up. Hopefully there'll be a link somewhere down below, and we're going to talk about how these bad boys play upon the tabletop and how they look, and hopefully how they're going to look for ninth, if we can say that. Anyway, let's talk fluff.
Yeah. So, fluff. What we're going to do, we're going to do it in sort of two chunks. We're going to think first about the Incubi, and then we're going to think about Drazhar, right? Okay, who's sort of one of the sort of the most infamous of the Incubi. So, the Incubi, for those that don't know, are one of the mercenary orders of the Drukhari. The Drukhari obviously mostly live and operate in this enormous city in the webway called Camorra. And within their society, you have your sort of different sub-factions. You have the witches, the cabals, the covens, who all sort of do different things and perform different roles within Drukhari society. But there are also a range of sort of mercenary orders that perform different functions. And the Incubi are the mercenaries most preoccupied with war and killing and fighting, basically. They are sort of the trained killers of the Drukhari universe, the mercenary kind of contract killers of the Drukhari universe. And one of the interesting things about them is that they are sort of perfectionist in that very sort of Eldar way. Anyone who knows sort of Craftworld Eldar knows with your different aspect warriors, you've got kind of these Eldar who kind of obsess about one thing at a time and sort of devote their lives to kind of one particular skill set. And Incubi are a lot like that, where most Drukhari are very interested in partying and excess and all sorts of weird things and have all sorts of terrible habits.
Whoa, that's Slanesh. That is Slanesh. We can see how this princess was born.
Yeah, it ends up looking suspiciously like Slanesh, the way they go about it. But for the Incubi, they're a little bit more like the Craftworld, in as much as they're very dedicated, they're very obsessive and perfectionist, and they're always training and working and trying to kind of perfect the art of combat and killing. And they have the shrines throughout Camorra that they sort of live in and operate. And you can become any Drukhari can become an Incubi, but it's an extremely difficult and dangerous task, right? Basically, to become an Incubi, you have to go to one of these shrines, one of the Incubi temples, and you can only become one by killing an existing Incubi and taking their armor, right? There's no new armor getting made. You have to take someone else's armor. You're not getting sort of provided for when you arrive. You have to defeat an Incubi in combat, and then you claim their armor and take up their role in the temple. And once you've done that, you obviously have your training, and then as an initiate, your single task is to kill an aspect warrior in single combat. So it's a typical Drukhari thing, sort of bitter, sort of grudge, always having their grudges with the craft worlds. You can only become a proper Incubi if you track down like a striking scorpion or a howling banshee and kill them in single combat.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's proper. So, question to yourself then. So, what happens if, let's say, for argument's sake, a Dark Eldar or Drukhari member was floating around in a battlefield and one of these Incubi died? Could he claim his armor that way?
That's a very good question. Yeah, it's a very good question. Yeah, if you turn up with a sort of second-hand suit. Well, it's interesting when we get to Drazhar, we'll talk about it, because Drazhar, obviously, he turns up in Incubi armor already, and no one really knows where that comes from. So that's a bit of a mystery. I think to join one of the shrines, you're supposed to defeat one of the other existing Incubi. But yeah, that might be your loophole that you've spotted there, Darren. If you nick some armor on the battlefield and then turn up and just sort of blend in the crowd and see if you can get away with it.
Well, this is the thing, because they're already badasses in combat. So if you're new to this and you haven't had the training, that's going to be really difficult.
Oh, definitely. Exactly. I think you'd want to be pretty dangerous already before you even tried to go in there, or it's going to go really wrong. I think
kind of like invite him out for a night out party and go, "Hello, mate. Yeah, come on, let's have a little party. Let's have a little bit of this warp dust that's going on here, and let's get you like in that mood." And poison your drink, as you say, and then when we battle tomorrow, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's Drukhari. I'm sure they'll try anything, right? Sort of sneak your way in, sort of underhandedly. Maybe that'll work for you.
The dirty
it's
tactics.
definitely worth a go. I think it's an interesting one. The fun bit with the aspect warrior stuff that I didn't realize as well is that once you've killed the aspect warrior, you're supposed to take their spirit stone and break it. And you take it with you. And I hadn't spotted, but on the new Drukhari models, they've all got these little gems on their sort of shoulder pads that have shattered sort of design, so they're broken. And those are the spirit stones from the aspect warrior that they have killed to become initiated. And it's called Tormentors, they're called. So Drukhari, every incubi has a Tormentor on their armor that is a spirit stone they have taken from a Craft World aspect warrior and broken, and then sort of worked into their armor, which I think is pretty cool and pretty sinister, right? There is all about that sort of grudge match and bitterness with the Craft Worlds. But I hadn't spotted that on the models until I read about it, and I was like, oh yeah, that's what those little sort of broken gems on their armor are. So yeah, and the tormentors, as they call them, because it was a spirit stone, it had a soul in. Now it's been sort of warped and damaged. They emit this sort of horrible, terrifying energy and sort of scare people that are in the near vicinity. Because you've got sort of the ghost of this dead Eldar warrior still intermittently kind of breaking out, which is pretty bleak, but pretty cool, I think. As long as you're not an aspect warrior, obviously it's a bit sad for you.
Is it like, now correct me if I'm wrong on this, but in Eldar a dead race, and they're there's a lot of time travel going on with these boys, or am I just like imagining this?
No, well, for the Eldar, it's the thing with the Spirit Stones is, that's how they preserve themselves now, because once you die, your soul gets eaten by Slaanesh otherwise. And so for the Drukhari, they managed to stave that off by doing all this horrible, weird torture and hedonism and everything else. They managed to basically feed Slaanesh that way so that they can stay free. But for the Craft World, Spirit Stones is how they do it. So they keep recycling their souls in Spirit Stones to stop them from getting lost. So taking and breaking a Spirit Stone is a pretty horrible thing to do, right? It's killing permanently. Yeah. So it's a really symbolic and significant thing to do.
Because I just remember like all the fluff wives now, thinking, how does that work? Because I'm sure they were a dying race and.
Oh, absolutely, that's right. Well, they are. Their numbers are dwindling, right? I think the Drukhari are more successful. Yeah. All you Eldar haters out there are like, okay, not too long. But yeah, with the Craft Worlds, it's Spirit Stones or bust, really. And then obviously you've got the Inari who think that there's some kind of strength in death that you can find to sort of regenerate. Harlequins are all able to hide in the webway, and Segarach protects them. But for the Dark Eldar, it's all they're buying time, right, at the expense of pain and suffering from other people. That's how they do it.
Which makes sense.
It does, yeah. And you've got the Covens who managed to sort of grow new Drukhari as well. But it's all really bleak, right? All the different races have to sort of adopt these really desperate strategies to try and stay away from Slaanesh and survive. Yeah, I mean, so that's the interesting stuff for sort of the Incubi Temple, really. They are the contract killers in Drukhari society, and if you want somebody killed or you want to go out on a raid into real space, then you'll hire some Incubi, and they'll be your hired muscle. They fight with these big blades, these claves they're called, which are these enormous swords that they sort of have perfected the art of sort of killing in single combat with. And
those swords are absolutely friggin'. They're awesome, aren't they?
They're really cool, really distinct, I think. And there's the leaders in the units have these sort of the demi-claves, as they call them, so they can kind of break one of them up. It's a bit Darth Maulish, you turn your one sword into two. And then so they're really cool as well. And they're sort of these really strange, they're simultaneously really sharp and really blunt. They've got these massive, thick, long blades and then a really keen edge. So it's you can really see someone being sort of battered with that and then sliced with it as well. It's pretty and so
I suppose it depends on how much they want to torture their opponent, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Give them an absolutely pounding with the back end of this blade, and then when it comes to that final part of like the execution, they can just turn the blade around like straight off. They're
always waiting for that killing strike, right? That's what they're all about, perfecting that. So it's just waiting for your moment, sort of dancing around somebody and then taking your chance to kind of finish them off, which is typical Eldar stuff, right? Eldar are always playing with their food. Whichever faction they are, sort of dancing around and then waiting for that moment. Yeah, and so the main sort of character that we have in amongst the Drukhari for the Incubi is Drazhar, and again, so Drazhar is obviously a sort of an infamous figure for the Drukhari, strikes fear and dread into his foes, and he's called the Master of Blades. And essentially, his backstory is quite mysterious. He basically just arrived at the Incubi temple one day in full armor. He doesn't speak at all. He's a sort of Boba Fett type character where doesn't really say anything. He just sort of stands there in armor, looking kind of scary. And he enters the temple, fights his way through to the leader of the temple, and then just kills him in single combat. And then it just sort of sits down, sort of, right, I'm in charge now. I'm gonna stay here and run the show. And he's not actually a hierarch. He's not like the official leader. He becomes sort of their main champion and executioner, right? He is the best of the best for sort of single combat and assassination. And he's he's a mysterious figure because he doesn't speak at all. And there's all these different rumors and theories as to who he is and where he comes from. And you get some theories who say that Drazhar is like Ahriman and the Thousand Suns, and that actually there's no one there. It's all just dust in there. But obviously you never see inside his armor, so we don't know if that's true or not. One of the other theories is that he's actually the original Felix Lord of the Striking Scorpions, of the Aspect Warriors, because I don't know if you've ever seen the old Drazhar model, but he's really scorpion-like. He's got like these big claws that he's kind of hanging up. I don't think the new model doesn't hint at that quite as much, but that sort of one of the big theories is that Ara, I think the Phoenix Lord's exarch was called, famously sort of became corrupted and disappeared, thousands of years ago. But the theory is that maybe Drazhar is the Phoenix Lord's Phoenix Lord of the Striking Scorpions reborn. But if he is, he's not telling because he doesn't talk.
No, right, I get that.
And so the name Drazhar means living sword. And he is essentially, that is it. He is a weapon, right? He's one of these characters where he is just an instrument of death and destruction. He is sort of the finest killer that the Dark Eldar have ever produced, the Drukhari have ever produced. And in Camorra, he's kind of feared and respected in equal measure for this. And the interesting sort of the more recent fluff with Drazhar that's happened with Psychic Awakening and the Blood of the Phoenix box when that came out, essentially had this whole interesting side plot where what has happened is that Vect in Camorra, Vect, the sort of the leader of the Cabal of the Black Heart, the sort of the infamous schemer and boss of the Drukhari world, he's getting pretty worried about Ivrain and the Ynnari, the new Eldar that have turned up that are saying, there's a new god in town and we need to fight back against Slaanesh and all of this stuff. And Vect is getting a bit worried about Ivrain, doesn't like her very much. And Vect actually hires Drazhar to go and to kill Ivrain.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, so Drazhar is given the contract of killing Ivrain herself. And when Ivrain is at a meeting, I think on Samhan, Craft World, Drazhar comes within an inch, basically, of killing her. He manages to sneak into this meeting and sort of almost very nearly assassinates her on the spot. But is prevented from doing so by Jane Zar, the Phoenix Lord of the Howling Banshees, who's also there. And in the new Phoenix Rising series, in the Blood of the Phoenix series, Drazhar and Jane Zar have this series of duels between each other, sort of two epic sort of Eldar warriors. And Drazhar is able to defeat Jane Zar in an ambush in one attempt, and he actually kills Jane Zar. But then it's the Ynnari these days. They never lie down. They've got all this sort of this new nonsense with their new god Inyed that can kind of raise people from the dead. So Ivrain manages to get Jane Zar resurrected, and then in a second combat that they have, Jane Zar is able to defeat Drazhar. But as it turns out, another Incubi sort of takes up Drazhar's armor and is then sort of taken over again by some force. So it seems like whatever is imbuing Drazhar's armor with power can outlive his actual defeat in combat. It comes back again. All it needs is someone to put the armor on, and then whatever this spirit is takes over whoever's wearing it. So an interesting twist there, suggesting that he's not going anywhere anytime soon, I thought.
That's very interesting. It kind of gives you that chaos feel upon him, but definitely, that's for sure. Kind of like Lucius in a way, really, isn't it?
I think. What, sorry?
It's kind of like Lucius in a way, because like Lucius has that same ability, doesn't he? Anyone kills Lucius, God help you, because
Yeah,
you're going to be torn apart, and guess who's popping out? It's kind of like Freddy
yeah.
Krueger in Nightmare on Elm Street. You know, it's like claws out.
Yeah, he's interesting. He's quite a mirror for Lucius in some ways, right? Because it's that sort of that duelist, that sort of that one-on-one, that kind of perfectionist vibe. So actually, yeah, it's interesting. I always think it's interesting the way that the Drukhari end up mirroring Slaanesh in certain ways in their efforts to avoid Slaanesh and to escape Slaanesh. They actually look a lot like it and feel a lot like it. So yeah, I think he is quite a lot like Lucius. I agree with that.
Yeah, it definitely has that, you know, that feel upon him. Like I'm just looking upon the actual model itself, and Drazhar has got so many shattered soul gems on him. It's absolutely crazy.
He's got like a necklace of them, right? He's got absolutely loads of. He's got soul gems all over him.
So he's got like what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 around his neck, and then he's got 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 13 soul stones.
Yeah. So that is, and you know, he'll be killing like autarchs and exarchs, all the sort of elite, the finest warriors in Eldar society, and just collecting their spirit stones. So yeah, he's the biggest of the bad when it comes to sort of really punishing the craft worlds and fighting the craft worlds. I think in this story where he fights Jane Zar, he's already killed like 3 autarchs by the time he even gets to her.
Wow.
which is crazy, right? You know, they have other stories, you know, about him sort of defeating sort of a whole bunch of custodes in single combat, all this stuff. He's sort of the consummate warrior in melee.
Because Eldar generally are like, if you go by the fluff wise, they are pretty much badass in close combat. Like, they're fluff. Right? They're small in structure. Their frame is very small. They're not very big at all, but they make up for their speed. So they're not very strong, but their speed is just outweighs anything. Right.
That's
so like,
absolutely.
If a Marine starts going into combat, like Marines are very known for being big, bulky, chainsword, axe, power fist, whatever weapon they've got to hand, Marines are very deadly. And if they manage to get their hands out of an Eldar, it is lights out type thing. But the Eldar are so fast, so quick, it makes it very hard for anyone to get their hands off it. And I can imagine these guys, you know, the Cabal being even faster with those blades, you know, proper in and out, weaving around combat, you know, getting the blades in, straight into the gut.
Yeah. It's all about subtlety and agility and sort of timing your moment and sort of dancing around your opponent. You know, Eldar, I mean, it's very much in their law. You know, you're absolutely right. It's all about the art form of war, right? And their skill in war, rather than their brute strength. I mean, their speed is obviously that's their natural asset, right? They are quick and graceful.
Yes.
But they're in combat. Yeah, they completely depend on being able to sort of dance around and outplay and outthink your opponent and sort of pick that moment. As you say, you know, if a Space Marine sort of gets you in a cuddle, that's game over for an Eldar any day. But,
proper.
Yeah.
You know,
idea. Never let it get to that point, and you're always dancing around them till it's time to sort of deliver that killing blow.
So, just out of curiosity, then, so with the Incubi, once they kill another Incubi to get their armor, I know we're kind of going back a little bit, but do they destroy their Soul Stone, or does that Soul Stone?
So yeah, so that's interesting. So I don't know what they do with the Soul Stone that was already in the armor. I think for the initiation they're supposed to go and get another. So I don't know whether they would. I imagine they would be expected to go and get their own. I don't know what they'd do with the original, whether they'd keep that somewhere. I guess they probably would. You know, it seems like they're. You know, if you look at the Drazhar model, they're clearly into collecting these spirit stones and keeping hold of it. Obviously, for a Drukhari, you know, once you've killed the Drukhari, there's no soul to harvest because you know their souls went a long time ago. They're just sort of filling the gap where it used to be, basically.
Yeah, sure.
But that's an interesting question, actually. Yeah, and it would be very interesting to. I don't know if there's any sort of written stuff out there about the sort of the actual process of becoming an Incubi. It'd be a cool sort of short story or book for the Drukhari, definitely.
So it definitely makes it very interesting on you know, the way that works. So what we're saying is pretty much there's nothing in, you know, they're soulless in a way then. Yeah,
so for the Drukhari, it's kind of they are just, it's like you're almost treading water, right? They know that Slaanesh is coming for their souls eventually, but they also know that as long as they can inflict pain and suffering and commit these crazy acts of kind of hedonism, then they can for the short term feed Slaanesh indirectly and sort of keep their souls sort of staved staved off and keep themselves safe. And that's kind of the sort of the sad irony of the Drukhari.
So they don't actually have a soul stone themselves, then.
No, they don't do it in the same way as the craft worlds do, where that's the stone is how you prevent that soul getting lost. For the Drukhari, it's just you just keep making that little pact with the devil over and over again. You keep feeding sort of the evil and the dark.
Why do the craft worlds work so well hand in hand with Drukhari?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Because Eldar's all about stopping chaos. Like, you know, they really do weave some fantastic plot lines to like try stop chaos from happening. Like, you got the whole thing with Comaticus and John Comaticus. Am I saying his name right? It's Comaticus. But you got that whole thing where they're really trying to, in the Horus Heresy, they're really trying to fuel that to, you know, for chaos to win, and if chaos wins, then it kind of extinguishes itself, and like they're really, really playing upon that, and they really don't like chaos at all, and they're trying to do their best to stop it. But then you got the Dark Eldar that seem to be like, I don't get it. Whether
I think it's for them, it's kind of like they're running away from the problem. Really, I think like the craft worlds are trying to actually win that war, and so are the Inari. I think the Harlequins are also trying to keep things in balance, but for the Drukhari, I think they're serving themselves really. They're just doing whatever they can to survive and to keep doing the things they wanted to be doing. And that's why they are the fallen faction, right? They are the ones that have made the decisions that have birthed Slaanesh, and now that they're not doing anything really in the same way to actually help defeat Slaanesh at all. I'm sure Drukhari are just as fearful, and where Camorra is in the webway, it's very vulnerable. If Slaanesh ever breaks through properly, they're going to be in a lot of trouble, and I think Slaanesh has broken through occasionally.
Yeah, sure, I get that.
It's kind of like I guess it's a bit like where you've got a big threat looming with like something like global warming or something. Either you've got your people who are trying to actually take it on and do something about it, and you've got people who are like, there's no point. We're not even going to be able to beat it. We'll just carry on. So
who do they follow? Which god do they follow, or do they not follow any god?
So
because they're making that pact with Slaanesh in stating that. Stating their hunger, so they recognise Slaanesh as a thing.
Yeah, I think they know Slaanesh is out there. I don't think they mean to sort of keep Slaanesh fed. I think they're still seeing themselves as staying away from and staying one step ahead of Slaanesh. It's just that that those kinds of acts and depravity are obviously exactly what Slaanesh likes. So it's kind of it's an interesting one. I think. I expect that the sort of the pantheon of the Eldar gods is still important for your average Drukhari to some extent, but I don't know. I think the thing with them is that they're all about themselves. They've let their obsession with themselves and gratifying themselves sort of detach them from all of that. But I don't know. It'd be interesting. I've not thought about where the sort of the original Eldar pantheon fits in with the Drukhari. Because obviously Eldar can move between the different societies as well. You don't have to be fixed as one forever. Drukhari can become Harlequins, and craft worlders could end up fleeing and falling and becoming a Drukhari. So,
I didn't know that. I didn't realise that Drukhari could.
Yeah. So I think probably going from Drukhari to a craft worlder, that's probably not really a goer. I don't know how easy it is to sort of come back that way. But I know Drukhari can.
You kind of got to explain yourself why you've been hunted down, striking scorpions.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, why did you kill that aspect warrior?
Yeah, exactly.
Just out of curiosity, out your resume. You want to join? I see you want to join our craft world. Could you please explain to me why was you seen on this craft world executing one of our striking scorpions?
Yeah, exactly. It's a difficult case to make, I think. But yeah, it's interesting because I think you get a sense the more you read into the different Eldar societies, there are these little overlaps between the different groups, and like the Harlequins, they do their performances in Camorra, in the Drukhari city all the time, and so actually Drukhari are quite sort of well familiar with the Harlequins, and obviously they both live in the webway. I guess Harlequins are a bit more sort of morally ambiguous than the craft worlders as well, so I think there's more overlap there because the Harlequins can be pretty nasty themselves when they want to be. But yeah, it's an interesting one thinking about what sort of overlaps there is in terms of the religion and stuff and where they fit into the struggle. Certainly, I think there's more Drukhari leaving to join with Ivrain and the Inari now as well, which is precisely why Vex tried to have Ivrain assassinated, I think.
Because you've got Cain Cain is the elder god, isn't he?
Yeah, Cain's sort of the bloody handy god, the god of war in a way for the Eldar. And he's obviously he's killed by Slaanesh in their duel. When Slaanesh is born, Cain is basically broken into tiny pieces in his fight with Slaanesh. And I think, when you get your avatars of Cain and stuff walking around in Eldar, so they represent like one fragment of what's left of Cain, right? Cain was this big god, but he's now been shattered. And so the Eldar Pantheon all get basically eaten and destroyed and kind of locked up in all sorts of places. I think in Age of Sigmar lore now, Isha, one of the Eldar gods, has been locked up in the Garden of Nurgle. I think Papa Nurgle's locked her up for some reason, which is obviously not a garden you want to be in.
No, that's not a garden you want to be in. That's like the worst garden you want to be in.
Yeah.
Oh, I fancy an apple today.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I'm going to skip this one.
I think the only Eldar god that actually survived the fall intact is Segaratch, is the god of the Harlequins, the laughing god, and he's still out in the webway somewhere. I always wonder if we're going to get him come back at some point. That'd be or like an avatar of Kegaratch would be really cool.
It's interesting because we're now obviously I don't want to say too much because obviously we don't know, but we're coming into that era of Ninth where they're talking about pushing that story forward.
Yeah.
So, is there potential that we could start seeing some more cool fluff? Because we're seeing the rise of the Silent King coming up. So
that's right. All these big god forces are kind of coming back to roost, and that would be really cool, right? If you got some of these big Eldar ones coming back.
That would be really, really cool.
It'd be awesome to see more, like a fresh take on the avatar of Cain or on Cain, a fresh take on the Laughing God. With the Drukhari, you feel like if they bring a big bad back, it'll be Vect though, right? Vect will start doing more out and about. Maybe, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see.
It would be definitely interesting on that. I see now knowing a little bit more about the fluff, and I understand the stones around their neck before, because like as I said, I didn't realise that's what those soul gems were.
Yeah,
I actually thought it was their gems.
No, that's the thing, and that I always thought the same. And I looked at the gem, and it's like it's broken. It's got little holes in it, so it's you look at the models, and there's scores taken out of it. It's smashed, and it was always like, oh, I wonder why they look like that. And then it's like, oh, it's because it's been taken from another dead Eldar, which is really interesting.
That makes total sense. So that's really cool. That these guys sound very, very interesting. They sound like they're probably the baddest of the Dark Eldar.
They're really, really bad.
It's just a shame that unfortunately the fluff and the gameplay is totally different.
Yeah,
you don't really see these on the tabletop as much.
A bit of a mismatch. I think Drazhar gets a lot of play now because he's something that the Dark Eldar lack. Incubi, I mean, obviously when we go into our tactics section, we'll talk about it. I think the main reason you don't see Incubi is just that there's other stuff that Drukhari have that is also really horrible in melee.
Sure. Well, look, that brings us to the end of this small little fluff bit on the Incubi and Drukhari. If you like this content, if you haven't already, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. It really does help us out, and we really do appreciate it. And hopefully you'll tune back in for another fluff video from ourselves at Twisted Dice.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
And if you haven't already, please do share. Share with your friends, share on all Facebook, even share with your dog down the road. Anyway, that's me, Darren and Tom, and hopefully we'll catch you all again soon. And if you're interested upon the tactics side of this, come join us on that video, and we talk tactics on the Incubi. I nearly said something else, but on the Incubi. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and we'll catch you all again soon.
Cheers, guys.
Peace.
Bye-bye.